Welcome to the Uncensored Society podcast, where guests share their insights, experiences, and tactics to help you accelerate your business. So building, scaling, and monetizing your business is made easier. And now, your host, Kay Suthar.
Oh my goodness, guys, I have a super awesome guest for us today. I'm so excited. We got Cohen. He is an accomplished internet marketer and a massive family man who has, over a decade ago, took a major gamble with his life financially. He quit his corporate job and then started his own business. That business soon became both an offline and online success, generating millions of dollars in sales and totally transforming his life as well as the lives of countless others. Please welcome to the show, Cohen. Oh my goodness, Ty, I'm so excited for you to be here today.
Listen, after that introduction, I'm excited also. I can't wait to hear what we're going to talk about here. You got me ready. You got me jazzed up.
I'm so excited you feel that way. Awesome. Now, there is a couple of things I want to speak to you about. Firstly, I would love to dive in, right, so people get to know you a little bit more.
Yep.
And I know some of your story, but I know it didn't start off perfect, right? Yep. And so there was a lot of stuff that you had to work towards. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey from where you were before and how you started in business.
Yeah, interesting. So I have a pretty interesting story. And you know, we were just talking behind the scenes where I kind of mentioned that everyone's story is unique to us, but there's people that can kind of relate to it, right? So my story started with me growing up in one of the worst housing projects here in the United States. The crime rate was insane. It was so insane that police would be afraid to go into that area at times.
What area was this?
What was that? Say that again.
What area was this?
So this was up north. So this was in Connecticut. So Bridgeport, Connecticut. I grew up in five panic housing projects. And so in addition to that, I was born with something called sickle cell anemia. So sickle cell anemia is a chronic blood disorder, and it's something that really causes a lot of pain when you go into what's known as a sickle cell anemia crisis. I mean, I've spent literally, I would say, hundreds of days in the hospital, especially when I was a lot younger. I would be in the hospital for weeks. I would be in the hospital sometimes for up to a month, and had to learn how to walk all over again at one point, had to learn how to use my right arm at one point. I've had 2 hip replacements in my life. So growing up in one of the worst housing projects, plus being born with sickle cell anemia, I'm like, listen, I have to make it through this. There's like, either you just lay down and you cry, or you say, I'm going to bust through every single obstacle that can be put in front of my face, because there's nothing else that gets worse than that to a degree, right?
Right. Okay.
Right. Or so I thought. And then I started seeing other things. You know, I remember being about 12 years old, and I was in Yale New Haven Hospital. I was having a sickle cell anemia crisis. And I had been in the hospital for maybe about 2 or 3 weeks, when outside of a door, my hospital room door, I heard my mom and the doctor speaking. And the doctor says to my mom, in this really matter-of-fact tone, he says, Mrs. Cohen, you shouldn't expect your son Tyrone, which is my real name, my full name, to live past the age of 17. Right. So here I am. I'm a 12-year-old. And I'm hearing my mom and my doctor have this conversation. They didn't know that I could hear it, right? Because they're right outside of my bedroom door.
Yeah.
And man, I just put the covers over my head. I'm in my hospital bed, and I just start crying, because the reality of how severe the disease that I have really hit me at that point. As a 12-year-old, you're kind of able to process it. And I started thinking, like, geez, I've only got 5 more years to live. Right? 5 more years to live. So I started to really embrace a lot of the negativity that was going on in my neighborhood at that point. I'm like, listen, I only have 5 more years to live. I might as well just go out and have fun. And at that point, fun was just destructive things and self-destructive things, you know, because you only knew what you saw in your neighborhood, right? And it wasn't until, well, a few years later, probably about 1.5 years later. So out of 7, I have a total of, there was 8 of us, 7 brothers and sisters. It was just me and my older sister, Gwen, that had sickle cell anemia, right? Okay. So a few years later, my sister Gwen ends up passing from complications of sickle cell anemia. She was 27 years old, right? So now I'm about 13 and a half years old. My older sister, she dies from this thing. So I'm really thinking that my life is limited at this time. And it wasn't until, to be honest with you, I was actually 17 that I had this paradigm shift. I'm coming home from church with my dad one day, and I see a book by Les Brown in the back of his car pocket, right? The seat pocket. And I start reading this book, and I'm flipping through it. I was a avid reader because my mom would bring me comic books and just anything that I could read in hospital to get my mind off of pain. And I start reading this book, and I'm hearing Les Brown say things like, if you can look up, you can get up. Right. And if, someone else's opinion doesn't have to become your reality. So I'm like, I'm reading this book, and it was my first experience of personal development, self-improvement. First time I had ever seen anything that empowered you. And I'm thinking like he's speaking directly to me. The way his wording was, it felt as if he was talking directly to me. And I needed that at that time. So that was a paradigm shift for me. It allowed me to really get to a point where I said, regardless of whose opinion about my health is out there, regardless of what it has to take from me, and as my shirt says here, if it's to be, it's up to me. So I made that decision that day. I ended up taking the book out of my dad's car. I ended up stealing it, actually, not even taking it, not even asking him for it. And I stayed up till like 2-3 o'clock in the morning reading the entire book. And just woke up the next day a totally different person. I said, listen, I'm going to live as long as I desire to live, right? Providing, other things, God and universe and everything else. And I'm going to make it out of the hood. I'm going to make it out of the ghetto, and I'm going to become this person that helps to empower other people and help other people to see that they can get past any obstacle, regardless of what that obstacle may be at that time. So, I didn't know how I was going to do that. Right. So I'm looking around. I didn't know how I was going to do that. But I did know that entrepreneurship was going to play a major part in it. If I was going to change my circumstances, it would have to be me figuring it out, not relying on someone else, not relying on the government, not relying on the Republicans, not relying on the Democrats, not relying on the mayor, but me figuring it out. And I knew that one of the ways to do that, like I said, was through entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship could give me that financial freedom, which in turn could help me with everything else. So I know that was a super long answer, but that was my part of my journey right there.
No, and thank you for just getting really vulnerable and sharing that with everybody, And one of the things that really kind of stands out to me is that you could have easily gone down the road of, I give up.
100%.
Right? Yep. So what was that one thing that pushed you to be like, I'm not going to give up, I'm going to carry on, and I'm not going to let anyone dictate how long I live?
Yeah, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. Like, why didn't I just give up? I just thought it was too easy, right? I thought it was too easy to just give up. Like, that would have been the easy route to take there. And I saw in my neighborhood where so many people did do that. They gave up to drugs. They gave up to poverty. They gave up to lack of knowledge or understanding, right? And one of the things that I like to look at is, even to this day, is if most people are doing it, it's probably not the direction to go in, right? So if most people are giving up, it's probably not the direction to go in. And that applies to anything, right? You look at in the financial sector, if everyone's investing in this one stock or this one Bitcoin, chances are there's going to be a bubble. There's going to be something that happens. So you want to be a little bit cautious. And that can apply to almost everything that you look at in life, right? To a degree. Right. Yeah.
Okay. I love that. Now, moving on, because you are a very successful businessman, right?
Thank you. I'll take that.
One of the businesses you have is the Kindle publishing.
Yeah.
Right? Please explain to everyone what that is, because this is super, super interesting.
Absolutely. So over the last, 15, 16 years or so, I've taught hundreds of thousands of people how to self-publish their own content on Amazon's KDP platform. So KDP is Kindle Direct Publishing. For those of you that may not be familiar with it, Kindle has a platform. And when I say Kindle, I mean Amazon, right? Those words are kind of interchangeable. So Amazon has a platform that allows just anyone, you, me, the person that's watching this, or if you're listening to this, to take content and publish it to Amazon.com and make it available to their hundreds of millions, literally over 500 million customers, right? So I teach that process to just about anyone who's interested in creating a passive stream of income online. And the cool thing about this, Kay, is that you don't have to be an author. Like, you don't have to be a writer to do this, because I know a lot of people, they may be watching this or listening and they're like, well, Ty, that's awesome, but I felt like English 6 times, right? Or I have no desire to write. So you don't have to be a writer. You don't have to be an author. We show you how to get your content created. But I will tell you this. It is the best time for anyone, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are an internet marketer, whether you're a content creator, a coach. It's the best time for anyone to have a book published, and several books published on Amazon, because it becomes your calling card that really sets you apart from everyone else. There's nothing like having a book or telling someone, hey, go over to Amazon and check out my book. Like, that puts you in a totally different league than your competitors.
Okay. And so what if someone wants to write a book but has no idea what they want to write about, right? Or have so many ideas of things to write about? How do we cut that down?
Yeah, so great question. So, and that's most people, right? So most people fall into one of those two categories. Either they have no idea what to write about because there's just so many different topics, or they just have a ton of ideas and they don't know which one to start with first, right? Or which two to start with, right? And everything that I'm sharing with you here, I am pretty much preaching to the choir, because I've been there and sometimes still battle with it, right? So the reason why we have so many successful students, and we have students in over 126 different countries that actually have taken part of this program and are successful with it. But the reason why is because we have a system. So we have a formula that shows you how to get started. And it's basically a 3-step system. And the first step of that system is to go in and conduct your market research, right? Because we can come up with an idea. Well, let me ask you a question. How many times have you come up with an idea and you're like, man, this is the best idea ever? And to you, in your head, it sounds good. But when you go in and you share it with other people, it may not be the best thing. There may not be that enthusiasm, right? Yeah. So I'm there too. I'm raising my hand right along with you. So we start off with market research. And we start off with market research in a way where you can find out if your idea is one that people are actually interested in. And more than just interested in it, they're interested in it to a degree where they are willing to pay for it. Because it's not good enough to just have an idea, right? It has to... Listen, I've got 4 kids. We were talking about kids behind the scenes.
Right.
So I could have the best idea on the planet, but if I put my idea out there and no one's willing to pay for it, my 4 kids will be very unhappy.
Right.
So we teach you how to really go through the market research process of figuring out if your idea, number one, is one that people will go in and spend money for in exchange for that book, that ebook. And then if you don't have an idea, we also go through this market research process to show you how to come up with some ideas that are already proven, and you can go in and you can model those. So I think the market research is the first step that anyone, regardless of if you're interested in publishing Kindle books, or if you're just thinking of starting maybe a brick and mortar donut shop, right? You have to do the market research to find out if people in that area actually eat donuts. What type of donuts do they eat, right? If you're opening a hot dog stand, you don't want to open it up in an area that has 90% of vegan population, because, right, there's no one that's going to buy them there. So
Right. So I've got a question for you about publishing books, right? And so with some of our listeners, probably thinking, well, everyone writes a book now, right? Yeah. It's just become a thing to do, just write a book, right? Isn't it just saturated with just people writing books? Will people actually read your book because so many people are doing it?
Great question. You got some good questions. I could tell you've been doing your research there. Yeah. So absolutely. So if you think about it, right, books have been written in some degree, in some form, for thousands of years, right? Whether they were written on tablets or in a traditional sense, right? This is a great book by a buddy of mine, Dan Sullivan, right? And you probably have read his other book, Who Not How. Dan is a great guy, great mastermind programs. So whether it's a tablet, right, that books were written on, thousands of years ago, or in a traditional physical sense like this, or now in the digital Kindle sense, right? Books are going to be around forever. I think they'll probably outlast us. When all of the humans are gone, there's going to be robots that are reading books to entertain themselves and to educate themselves. And I say that to say that every year there's new authors that come out that create new content, fact and fiction, and there's new readers that are interested in that content, right? So if you look at my youngest son, Tyler, who, when he was just 10 or 11 years old, Diary of a Wimpy Kid was his favorite, right? That entire series, we bought every single book. Now that's him at 10, 11, 12 years old. Now he's 18, so he's interested in other subject matters now, right? So what we have is we have this growing population of people that are consistently interested in different subject matters. There's got to be a point where he gets interested in books that might give him information on how to become a better dad, how to become a better husband, how to grow a Japanese tomato garden. There's so many different subjects out there and so many different people that are interested in it. And if you take our first approach, which is conducting the market research, when you put out a book and you follow exactly what we do, your chances of failure are almost non-existent. So that's how important the market research phase of this is.
Right. And you mentioned your son, right? How he's written a book.
Right.
So are you saying that anyone, doesn't matter what age you are, can write a book and have it on Amazon?
Absolutely. So he's written his first couple of books when he was 15. So he started when he was 15. Wow. So with this Kindle publishing process, I actually started with my daughter, Maya, when she was 15. She's going to be 25 now, but she was the first guinea pig. I wanted to really put her through it and get it to a point where it's so systematic and laid out and an easy to follow process that a 15-year-old could do it. Right. So I said, hey, if I can give this to her and she gets results, then that just proves that almost anyone can do it, right? Okay. And then now I've got my daughter Summer, who's going to be 14 in July, and my son Tyler. I'm
telling him you said that.
Right. Absolutely. He can't watch this. We got to edit that part out. But both of them are successfully publishing. So that's part of the reason why we have people from all walks of life, writers and non-writers, people that are younger, people that are older. Our oldest student is 88 years old that's publishing books right now. I just got a testimonial from one of our students who actually coincidentally happens to live right here in North Carolina. I've never had a chance to meet her, but her son, she's given her son this program, and her son is 12 years old and made his first $1,000 publishing books on Amazon. So it's something that anyone can do.
Right, and that's pretty cool. And so that brings me to the topic, Ty. What we were talking about behind the scenes is, how does an entrepreneur like you, where you've learned the steps of what to do or not to do, have successful business? You've got several businesses that are successful, right? How do you, or what techniques and strategies do you use to bring up kids to also have that kind of mindset and to just go for whatever their heart desires?
That's a great question. That's another one, but I've never been asked before. And it's something that I often think about, to be honest with you. As I said, I have 4 kids, two girls and 2 boys. And I think the first thing is, as a parent, to give them the freedom, to allow them to morph and understand and find their own personality. Because I think that the more you push someone towards something, right? It's the old Romeo and Juliet story, right? The more you try to keep someone away from something, the more attractive it is. And the more you try to push someone towards something, the more they're repelled by it. So I think you kind of gently nudge them in the direction that is good for them, the direction that is safe for them. But at the same time, allowing them to develop their own identity, to develop their own personality. And then as parents, not try to live through them as well, right? Because we all seen the parents that wanted to be the football star or the basketball star and they didn't make it.
Yes.
And then they're trying to push their kid in that direction, right? And it turns out pretty ugly. Right. So we know our kids as parents, right? Sometimes we don't like to kind of, be honest with that fact, but we know our kids and which ones you can kind of steer in what direction. So I think it's a matter of knowing your children,
right?
Knowing what interests them, and then tying on other things that can be of interest to them and kind of morphing those two things together so that you can push them in that direction that you want them to go in.
Okay, so I'm interested in Ty because now I hear I'm not a mother, I'm not a parent myself,
Okay.
but I hear just like business, having kids, you just kind of learn while you're doing it.
100%. You're like flying by the seat of your pants. Me and my wife were just talking the other day, and we were like, raising children can be like one of the hardest jobs ever at times, right? And then there's other times where it's like the most rewarding, most beautiful thing ever. But there's going to be those times every once in a while you're like, what? Like, are you serious? So you're definitely learning as you go, especially when you have your first kid, right? So when you have your first one, good luck, right? You can read all the books that you want. You can watch all of the YouTube videos. You can, listen to all of the podcasts, and you'll get some great information. But you're also going to have some scenarios that are totally unique to you, and you're like, "What? They did not cover this right here." So,
do you know what? It's funny because I am the oldest child, right?
Okay.
And I'm always saying that the oldest child gets it the hardest, the most, right?
100%. Yep.
And then I'm looking with my younger brother. I'm like, I would never have been able to get away with that when I was younger, right?
Yep.
Like, what is going on here? And I guess it just gets easier with the second child, the third child. You know what to kind of have a go at them for, or what to kind of just let go.
I think what happens is the parents get kind of worn out with the oldest child, right? So you probably wore your parents out to the fact where they're like, oh my God, like okay, the next one. How many brothers and sisters do you have? What do you have?
It's just me and my younger brother, two of us.
Okay, so your younger brother, he probably gets like less of the blunt of that because also as parents, we're just like, you know what? We learn through mistakes as well, right? So you learn that sometimes being a little bit tougher may not be the route to go. So you become a little bit more lenient. So that's probably why your younger brother's getting away with some stuff here, right? So
to this day, my mother tells me that the gray hairs that she's got is because of me.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Now, that could be taken as a compliment, or it could be taken as, that means you put in your work right there, right?
Yeah,
so,
that's right. That's right. But yeah, I mean, I agree with my mother. I mean, I did put her through a lot of stuff. Or actually, I'm going to ask you this question. Can you describe a time that you were scared during your career journey?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I mean, there's been multiple times, right? So we're also into, not only do I teach digital publishing, right? I like to call this digital real estate because with each book that you publish, it's like playing Monopoly, right? So you have a new piece of digital real estate that you're putting on a Monopoly board. So you have all of these digital pieces of real estate, digital assets that are out there. But one of the other things that me and my wife, my family, we invest in is lots of physical real estate. So we just recently closed on a cabin out in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, right? And we've got another one that we're closing on in about 3 more weeks. Now, that was a different area for me, right? We've had new construction homes built. We've closed on multiple homes over our lifetimes, but every time you still get those butterflies, you still get the what ifs, you still have that uncertainty, even after doing it so many times, right? So that's one scenario. The other scenario is we do live events, right? So sometimes our live events can get like up to 1,000, 2,000 people. And they're 3-day events. And every time before it's time for me to get out there in front of the audience, and they could be physical events or they could be virtual events, I still get the jitters. I still get the uncertainty there, right? And what I have to do is I'll typically start off with a little joke or something like that, just to calm the ice, to break the ice there and jump into it. But even after doing this for years and years and years, you still have that uncertainty, that doubt that creeps in. Listen, the mind is one of the most powerful things ever. And it could be, you had said something when I was telling my story, right? You said, either I could have went the destructive route, or I could have gone the route that I've gone. So the mind is always challenging us, and it's always trying to keep us safe. And it tries to keep us safe by not allowing us to be introduced to new scenarios, or even scenarios that may be familiar, like me speaking in front of an audience, right? But it tries to protect us by giving us these little hints of doubt. Like right now we're doing this video, right? So at the 5 minutes ago, I'm like, let me make sure that my eyes are not darting all over the place. Let me make sure that I don't have something hanging out of my nose, right? There's all types of foolishness that comes into play here. And it could drive you nuts if you pay attention to every single thing.
Right.
Right. So my thing is here, if I push through this, what's the absolute worst that can happen? So then I'll go through these scenarios. So if I get on this podcast with Kay and I fail, like what's the absolute worst thing that could happen? Well, the comments may not be so nice, right? Or, we could have a storm and electricity goes out. Or, you start coming up with all of these scenarios. And you're one-upping each one, getting worse and worse and worse. The worst thing that can happen is I could die in the middle of a chair. And that's the absolute worst, right? So when you say that, everything else doesn't seem as bad. So you're like, I could take, my eyes darting back and forth over dying.
Right.
Right? So it becomes easier.
Amazing. So, and I was wondering about how a lot of people do this, right? But with the amount of different businesses that you have, right? Mm-hmm. With the teams that you have to manage, right? Yep. And then having a family, how do you balance planning for the future while also being present?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. That is a great question. So, I used to struggle with this this was like finding balance was one of the worst things ever for me. And I finally came to the conclusion that balance is bogus. Right. So balance is bogus for me. Okay. And what I mean by that is it's kind of challenging to balance family life, balance your personal life, balance business, right? All at the same time equally. So what I found is that I have to handle things in pockets, right? And that is if I'm with my family, I have to be there, totally present with them. Because before I used to try to be with my family on vacation and I'm on the laptop, right? I'm on the beach, but I'm on the laptop. Or I would try to, be here engaged in business, and then I'm thinking about being on the beach. Right. I'm thinking about going on vacation. Or I would try to be, at a point where I'm spending time for myself at the gym or maybe walking on the trail, right? Or maybe engaging in a hobby, but I'm thinking about family time or I'm thinking about business. So I've learned to just be totally present in whatever space I am in. And I also learned to kind of schedule things out. So I'll have things scheduled out, such as date night with the wife, right? And now we do some impromptu things. Like last night, we went to a comedy show and it was like spur of the moment, right? Mm-hmm. So we were driving past the comedy center and there was one of her favorite comedians there. And she's like, oh, I'm going to look up the tickets. So we just turned around, parked, and literally 10 minutes later, we're at a comedy show. So you do have those spur of the moment minutes, right? But I think for the most part, having a calendar, and I use Google Calendar, and scheduling things out helps you to stay on track big time. Look at that, right? So Google Calendar, allowing you to access it from your phone, your laptop, your desktop, your tablet, scheduling things out. So scheduling, if our children have like a football practice, or if they have a recital, or if they have an award show, or it's just personal time, scheduling that out, scheduling date nights with my wife out, scheduling staycations where we'll go out to a hotel and kind of just stay, me and her, for 2 or 3 days or sometimes a week. And we're just chilling out, right? And nothing else comes into play. Personal time. And I like to schedule my personal time early in the morning because I'm a morning person. So I'll get up before the family gets up and I'm able to meditate, right? To get that clarity. Meditation helps with it big time. Okay. So meditation helps with you having that singular focus because it allows you to be still and to be present whenever you need to be present, right? So for me, understanding that first, that balance is bogus after years and years and years of trying to balance things out, and then meditating and then scheduling things out, that has been the best thing for me, the absolute best thing.
Okay, and so I guess what I'm thinking is you're at a position where you've got several businesses, right? And you've got teams to kind of take over tasks.
Yep.
But what if someone is new and starting their business, right? Shouldn't their focus be mainly on the business that they're building? and kind of putting everything else aside for a moment?
So good question. Great question, right? So thinking back, and I share this with people a lot. When I first got started in business, it was, well, when I really started to focus more on business, right? I should say. It was me, my wife, and we had 2 children at that time. And what I would do is I would go into these periods where I would tell my wife and my children, hey, listen, if you guys give me like the next 2 hours uninterrupted, I promise you this weekend, we're going to do something really cool, right? This next 2 hours is going to pay off for us big time. Now, it might be 30 minutes. It might be 2 days, right? Give me 2 days uninterrupted, barring emergencies. Of course, if you come in and you get a splinter in your toe, you come through the door, right? You let me, right? You cut your finger off. You don't sit here and you're going, well, Dad, I've got 18 more hours, 2 days, and then I can come in and bust through. But, learning to really kind of ask for that time, and instead of just asking for it, explaining to them why it was so important and why it's going to pay off for us all as a family. Now, if you're single, because back in my single days when I was trying to start a business, I had all of the time in the world. The biggest distraction was me. I was the biggest distraction, not wanting to go hang out with the fellas, or, not wanting to go to the movies, and understanding that there's differences. But I think if you have a family, understanding that having a conversation and communicating with your family, your children, your significant, that you need the next 15 minutes uninterrupted, right? And explaining why. Because before I did this, before I started to explain why, they didn't really get it. It's easy for you to say, hey, can you give me 15 minutes of uninterrupted time without any explanation behind it?
Yeah.
And then them not really taking that serious. But when you go in and you explain it, it makes the world of difference. And you also explain that everyone's going to benefit from this, because I'm working on something that's going to be, for the better of our family.
So, Ty, how did you come up with that approach, right? And the reason why I'm asking, because it does sound simple, but you could have, again, easily have gone, and some parents do this, leave me alone, get out, I'm working right now, you know? But you took a different approach. So how did you come about, okay, that's not going to work, I got to do something different?
Because I tried that approach as well. And that didn't work, right? And total transparency, that approach just didn't work. Especially, our kids were 2, 3, 4 years old at that time, right? So they're coming in and they're ready to jump on daddy's back, and they want me to go outside and throw a football with them and everything, right? So that didn't work. And I think it just gets down to, we were talking about failures earlier, right? So everything that we try that does not work is a failure that we can learn from. So after doing that, it's like bumping your head against a wall and not getting through that wall. After doing that so many times, you realize that that's not the way, right? That's not what's going to work for us. They don't understand that, right? And maybe my approach is wrong. So sometimes we look at ourselves. I could have easily said, the kids don't get it, my wife doesn't get it, and that creates even more frustration. It creates a cycle of frustration. Right. And instead, I'm like, well, what am I doing wrong here? Maybe I'm not articulating it the right way. Maybe I'm not communicating it to them the right way. Let me try something different.
See, that's key. What you just said right there, you just said what I'm doing wrong. A lot of people they look at it differently and be like, what they are doing wrong. What's 100%. Getting on their nerves, right? Yep. The things so that is the key there, looking within yourself.
Yeah. And then it goes back to this, right? If it's to be, it's up to me. So if I'm going, listen, one of the biggest things I think as entrepreneurs who are in a relationship, who have other people that you care about around you, I think sometimes we get so fascinated and we fall in love with our ideas, and we want everyone else to see it as well, right? So we have these goals, and as an entrepreneur, there's the gift and the curse of just being able to come up with ideas. That's the gift. But the curse is being able to come up with so many different ideas. That's the curse, right? And then focusing on them.
Right.
But we come up with these ideas and we expect everyone, especially our immediate family, to see them, to understand them, and to be as excited about them as we are. And to be honest with you, that's not the case. Like, it's our idea. Like, if before I used to, my wife, right? I would come up with an idea, and as supportive as she is, I would expect her to be like up with me early in the morning, staying up late, super excited about the idea, ready to go in and take on the world. And then I had to come to the realization, like, that is the craziest thing ever. Like, I've got to be a madman to think that she's going to be just as excited about my idea. If that was the case, then she would have been, that would have been an idea that she would have birthed. Right? Now, she could be super supportive, which is great. But if it's to be, it's up to me. Right? So I have to be the one that stays committed, that stays excited. And then I realized that as you start to get more excited about your ideas, guess what? Other people get excited. So excitement is super contagious.
Oh, it is, definitely. I like that. Now, Ty, if there was one principle you had to teach our audience today, right, what would it be?
Honestly, I would say to work on 3 things. So your confidence, right? Your discipline, and your level of commitment. So I'll explain each one, right? Your confidence, because it takes a lot of confidence to do just about anything. If you look at anyone who's great in any area that they're great at, it takes a lot of confidence. You look at someone like LeBron James, whether you like him or hate him, right? It takes confidence to go out there on a basketball court in front of, thousands of people and to perform. It takes confidence to do this. For you to have a podcast and to reach out to all of the amazing people that you've reached out to, and knowing that people can say no, they can give you the runaround, they cannot answer, that takes confidence, right? So working on your confidence is always going to allow you to level up. The other thing is discipline. So having the discipline. So discipline is doing the things that you should do, even when you don't feel like doing them. So doing the things that you should do, even when you don't feel like doing them. So I'll give you an example. So if I say I want to go in and start out my Kindle publishing business, and Saturday rolls around, I'm off from work, right? Got the next 2 days off, Saturday and Sunday. I can either go bowling, I could go play tennis, I can go to the gym, but I have to discipline myself to put some time into that Kindle business that I say I want to get up and running so bad. So the discipline is going to help you big time, right? So that commitment is the third thing. So first, the confidence, knowing that there's going to be some things that are uncertain that may play on you. The mind's going to always try to trick you. And then having that discipline to do the things that you should be doing, even when you don't feel like doing them. And then the commitment is the third thing. And I say commitment because I see so many people that come in and they'll have an idea that is an amazing idea. That is an incredible, life-changing idea for them, for many other people that may come in contact with it, but they don't stay committed long enough, right? They'll have that idea to a point where they're not committed enough to even get started. Or if they do get started, they're not committed enough to stay with it, right? So a month will pass by, 3 months will pass by, and they see very small movement. Or even if they do see movement, right, they'll ditch it for something else. So you stay committed. So those 3 things will help you.
It's funny because one of my mentors, Tim Johnson, and you know him, when I speak to him about podcasting, right, and he can hear the excitement in my voice when I'm talking about podcasting, and he was like, keep that excitement up because that's what's going to push you to keep moving forward.
Yes, even when it's hard. Yes. Even that's what it is. So it's that confidence, the discipline, and the commitment will help you. You just said it perfectly. So even when things get hard, even when you start to doubt yourself, even when it seems like there's no movement, right? Those 3 things are going to help you to continue to move forward. Even when it's raining out here right now, and I much prefer 80 degrees out here, sun. But even when it's cold and it's raining out there and the morning's miserable or, dreary, the excitement, the commitment, the discipline, right? All of that is going to help you to continue to move forward. So.
Amazing. Now, I know, Ty, at this point, people are thinking, oh my goodness, how do I get hold of Ty? Right? So how can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on all social media. Facebook is my favorite. I'm actually the most responsive on Facebook. So if you go over to Facebook.com / actually, you know what? You can go to tycohen.com /social, and that'll connect you on all of my social media accounts. So Ty Cohen, TYCOHEN.com /social, and that'll connect you on Instagram, TikTok. Yes, I'm on TikTok. I won't do the dances and everything. There's maybe 2 dances. two dances maybe my daughter's been able to trick me into, right? So I got one of them up there. If you want to see, I got one up there. That's it.
Amazing. I'm going to have to go and run and watch that video for sure.
Oh,
but
yeah,
guys,
definitely.
thank you so much, Ty, for coming onto the show. It's amazing to have you on here and so many golden nuggets. I feel like I can talk to you forever about different things, right? But also, guys, the links that Ty has mentioned, they will be down below in the show notes. So make sure you go scrolling down and get hold of those links. Connect with Ty, find out what he's doing, and definitely go check out that dance he's been doing on TikTok. So once again, Ty, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, Kay, one last thing. You know what? I'd like to, if you don't mind, I want to give all of your viewers and your listeners a copy of my new book. So this book is super special to me, right? And I'll tell you why. Remember I spoke about Les Brown and me first getting a touch of personal development through Les Brown, right? So Les Brown, I've gotten to know him. We've become associates, and he actually wrote the foreword to my new book. So Kindle Publishing Secrets.
Amazing.
So this book right here with the foreword written by Les Brown teaches you everything that I know and everything that my top students know about Kindle publishing and how to get your own Kindle publishing business started so that you can have multiple streams of passive income. You can get a free copy because you are a viewer or listener to Kay's podcast by going to kindlecashflow.com/K. So KAY, kindlecashflow.com/KAY. We'll get you a free copy. There you go.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Oh my goodness. God, free gifts and all. Guys, go ahead and get that book. It is an absolute must. Thank you so much for that awesome gift, Ty. And again, amazing to have you on the show.
This was great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Uncensored Society podcast at www.uncensoredsocietypodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can get this and every other episode that's coming out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.